Okay, welcome to Elden Apologist, or whatever it is that I choose to call this series, where we are going to play Elden Ring and talk about some apologetics, some theology, some philosophy. Along the way, I thought that this would just be a fun idea to try out for me. And so, what we are going to do first and foremost here is prep some Elden Ring before we start talking about our direct topic at hand. What I want to try to do is use this colossal finger. This is the head of the Mother of Fingers. And of course, we're going to be playing just Shadow of the Erdtree for now. It's fresh on the mind. We're not going to go through the whole base game. At some point, I'll go through the whole base game again. But for now, we're going to try to upgrade this weapon. And it is this weapon that we're going to use as we go through another run of Shadow of the Erdtree. We will have to fight Moog, but obviously that is fine. Gazing finger plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and Somber Ancient Dragon. There we have plus 10. Gazing finger. It just kind of fits the criterion that I have for this build. So then, second question is whether we can. Oh, I guess actually this first playthrough is going to have to take a moment before we get to Shadow of the Erdtree, because I'll have to get Journey 2, and then we'll have to go straight to everywhere that we can go. Like, can you face even more God until you fight 2 demigods? I don't even remember. But we can just rush some demigods for the start of this playthrough. I feel like it works out nicely for a good start anyway. So let's see what our scaling looks like. Obviously, yeah, that's big time strength scaling. Yeah, not so much dex scaling, a little bit of int scaling, and not really faith scaling, but the weapon does require int and faith, so that's interesting. Yeah, we've got int D, strength B, faith E. That's kind of a really nice form out there, so I think we're just going to put our points into, we should be good on, yeah, we're good on vigor and endurance, so we're going to put our stuff into strength for the extra damage, and that's where all of our levels will go for now. As we respec this character. This is the Night and Flame character, so it really works out for this build. So, with that, the only way that we have to get back to Shadow of Erdtree quickly is to begin Journey 2 and get to Moog as fast as possible. So this will be a fun little experiment to see how this goes. So, what I want to talk about today is our first topic, and really, if you're going to start anywhere talking about religious philosophy or, you know, the theology of the world, there's really only one place to start, and that place is the existence of God, because really everything stems from that. And you've heard, I'm sure, all of the standard arguments for the existence of God. There's quite a few, and I don't think that the existence of God argument set, like starting with the argument from God of the Gaps, or starting with Pascal's Wager, or starting with one of the traditional arguments, fine-tunement, all of those things, it's not really sensical to start at that point for most people. That's not how they come to believe in God. And so for me, it's also not sensical for us to start there in this situation. Let's see if we can get a stagger on this guy. So my starting point is that you either start with the self-evidence of the existence of God, or you start at a point from the encountering of Jesus. That would be the Christian perspective. So you either start with God or you start with Jesus. And that makes a lot of sense if you think about it, because, from the other point of view, it's like, where else would you start? So if we're talking about the existence of God, and what I want to say is the evidence that God exists, let's start without Jesus, as weird as that sounds, because, like I said, I think there's 2 ways of getting there, and I think the first way is the self-evidence of God, and this point of view is sort of old-fashioned, I would say, and not new-fashioned. So you're starting at the point of view of, like, if when we look around at the world, does what we see echo the evidence of God's existence? And I would argue that it absolutely does. To me, that's why this makes sense as the most basic starting point, because I actually think that even despite all the ridiculous hubris and ego that we have nowadays, that people should still be able to look around and see that what is going on in the world is beyond our comprehension, it's beyond our understanding, it's greater. And so I think that that's the true starting point. Is I think that everybody in their soul can feel that, and the Bible even tells us that. I forget, I think it's Paul, but I forget exactly where, but that says that the creation and the birds sing his glory, and the creation echoes the glory of God. All of those type of things are true. And so I think when you look at that, there's something significant to that. Oh, you can use torrent on New Game Plus. I did not know that. Well, but anyways, I'm gonna try to just get straight to Lane Down. I don't know if you can get to Lane Down or not without Great Runes, so we're gonna find out. But anyways, so we should be able to, in my view, get to that point without assistance. You don't need to say like, okay, why should I believe in God, or what evidence is there for God, or the starting point should be I have nothing and then I decide to believe in God. That's not the presumption. It's never been the presumption up until this sort of new age, where we've decided that what we need is that we need to receive enough evidence of things, because what we have is this idea that we know everything that there is to know, and our science and our technology is so advanced that we have learned the nature of the universe, and God is an exception. And so if we're going to talk about the existence of God, then he needs to prove himself to us, because we've got all the information that we need, and don't need to take him into consideration. And for quite a few reasons. Do you also have a map by default on New Game Plus? The things that I do not remember about New Game Plus. But yeah, so I think that this would then be the primary starting point. It's the people who can look around and say that everything that's going on is beyond our understanding. It's beyond an explanation that we can come up with. It's more complicated and more complex in so many ways than anything that we could cook up. And there's just simply no way to, ignore it. Like, what I believe as a Christian is that God has made the evidence of himself so greatly known that there is no option to ignore it. And that proceeds into the point of Jesus, because that's what really made it known to that, like, absolute degree, I guess you would say. So what? I don't have sites of grace, but I do have locations. Very interesting. Okay. I guess we'll just fight through Margit and Godfrey, because I don't even know the back way. I know there is a back way. Maybe I could find it. Into Liurnia. Actually, I think I do know where it is. We'll have a look. But anyways. Yeah, so I feel like I've made kind of the standpoint there pretty clear. It's straightforward. It's just the idea that you can see evidence for God just by looking. And he's given us enough evidence, to be able to, like, that I think it's not necessarily that you immediately know that God exists and he is who he is, but that you can be able to immediately look around and say that there's something more going on here and want to investigate it. Like, every person, the meaning of their life essentially is the investigation into, is there God? And the search for God is essentially what you do in living and being alive. And to me, that makes perfect sense. Because what else would it be? Like, it really is just seemingly the most sensical thing. So isn't it right around here? I would think it is. I don't know, see if I can find our way up. So, like, the only thing that stems then is on your search for God. When you search, like, if you agree, not everybody agrees with this. They think that there's simply no evidence, and it makes more sense that we're just in this thoughtless, random universe where everything that's happened is random, and everything was random and will be random and always was and is and will be random. And, like, I can't necessarily convince you out of that. My argument is not self propagating in that way that it's just going to, be able to convince you that is not the case. But I think that there's enough evidence, and I think that if you're taking that point of view, I just think that you're being too hubris, and I think there's too much hubris, and you need to let go of the idea that everything is going to be within our human understanding. I think it's an incorrect idea, and I think that is pretty evident. and I think that we should be letting go of that idea, because it just makes no sense to me personally. And I think to everybody on the long end. I think really, if you take the time to think about it and look at it, like, it's just not possible that you could not go searching for God. Like, you have to be so sure to say that everything's random. I just feel like you have to be more sure to say everything is random than to say that there is a purpose and a reason for everything, in my view. Because how else? Like, how else do you, like, I don't know, provide for everything that we know and don't know? There's so much that we don't know, and it's really shockingly more than what we do know. And I think that, to me, that is the greatest evidence. Like, I just, for people who say that we know so many things, and I just don't think that's true. And I'm far from the only person who would make that point. So. See if we can cook Margaret up here pretty quickly. I thought we'd get a stagger off, so I was going full in on that. Oh my gosh, that damage is nuts. Okay, that's smarter than Bellowman. So, with my point of view established, where I think that, you know, it's essentially undeniable to say that there's just a complete and zero likelihood of there being a God. I think that's an absolute statement, and you're making essentially a religious statement by even saying that. It's just, I don't think that there's evidence for that. I don't think it's defensible. It's just clear that there's more going on than that, to me. And I think that that reigns true for just about everybody. I think every normal person, your normal procession, if you didn't like wake up and walk out to this like scientific community telling you that we have everything that we need to know, and evolution and all of these things that we are supposedly so sure about, and giving you all these perspectives, if you were just to wake up a normal human being, and this is what's happened for all of human history, is that you would just proceed into life and you would say, it looks like there's more to life than meets the eye, really. It doesn't look like that everything I'm seeing is as simple as it looks. There's more going on. There's more to find out. There's more to learn. So many things. And I think that that is, to me, the highest evidence. It's just simply not true that there is no evidence. There's at least enough to get every reasonable person looking. Like, I think what I would urge you to consider is, if you go and actually look, what you will find is there's not like this 100% certainty like we pretend that there is. We pretend that we just know beyond all of our best guesses and expectations what's going on in the world, and that's just not the truth of the matter. And I encourage you to investigate further if that even rings the little bit true to you, because it really is the case. I don't know why I'm taking talismans, but I thought you had to come in here to get a key. Maybe not. So I'd like to hear, honestly, like, thoughts and counteracting viewpoints on this. Where don't I get the key? That's what I'm so confused about. I thought the key was in that room. Did I not, like, pick it up from his body or something? Why do I not know this? It is. It's over here. Aha. Okay. I know how to play Elden Ring, everybody. Go down here, please. So, the natural procession of this logic, then, is from you know, there's evidence that a God exists, that something greater exists. You can see this in the oceans and the weather and the cosmos, the rainbow, the fire, all of these things that are, I guess, what you might call greater things in my eye, the things that just, you know, birds are singing praise kind of idea, that just everything is speaking of something higher than what you can see. And I think that that is the absolute truth. And so then the procession from that, that existence of God evidence, I guess a better way to state that as finality might be like, it's not an evidence of God, it's the evidence of God. It's the default position is that something more is going on here. Like the default human being would think there's something more going on than what I'm looking at. It's not just this natural procession of random things. It's not just random, and nobody thinks it feels random. Like there's not a human being out there who's like, yeah, I feel real random, and everything feels real random. And when you get into the details even further, then like everything you learn more so kind of goes that direction, like the existence of the universe and the state of the universe and all of these things that we then learn and know and find out. It just becomes even more clear. It's like, yeah, it's not random, and to feel that it is, it's just feels really incorrect for obvious reasons. So, yeah, so I think that goes to say, and then like I said, that naturally progresses into, if there is a God, then who is it? Because then you have all these other religions, and you're looking around, and that's part of the evidence as well, is that there's all these people who believe all these things and have believed all these things for all of human history. And to me, that's more important than the fact that there's some people today who believe that, who believe different scientific things. Like the fact, what people have believed for all of human history to me is just simply more significant. I think it should be taken as more significant, obviously, you know, than just even the little things. So, as I've been trying to get around to, and now I'm gonna like almost get killed, so I'm gonna just dip and dive over here. It's through here, right? The elevator. I just want to send it up. Yeah, just send that elevator up and maybe heal. Maybe kill those guys. And then I think we proceed out here, if memory serves. I don't know, this is just like a, I don't even know, a somber smithing stone, and then that's that pathway. I think it's actually over here. Okay. So then it's, yeah, which God? Okay, if God exists, then which God? And you have, you know, hundreds of religions and hundreds of spiritualities and different ways of seeing the world and different ways of seeing God thereby. And, you know, for a religion to claim it has to be true, then it has to have some pretty strong evidence that's for it. And that's kind of fair, honestly, especially if you didn't receive like a special revelation directly to yourself. Then you would, yeah, of course you would want a specific evidence, a more specific evidence that focuses on the details that make it apply to you. Because otherwise, like, why would you believe it? It's a relatively reasonable logic. I'm just gonna maybe get killed here, I think. So I think that because I've done this too, not just like guessing, and because I was raised in a Christian family, but I think that then this is where Jesus comes in. Now, like I said, this could also be a starting point. You could also start the existence of God aspect on just Jesus alone, because this man came, and we have strong evidence that he came, and he made very substantial claims, and his claims are recorded in a number of places very clearly. And because of this coming and these claims, then you could take that in and of itself as an evidence for the existence of a God, because, you know, if what this man's saying is true, then right there is an evidence. Right there you have some supporting evidence, you have a supporting idea, you have things going on that are leaning themselves towards this idea. And I think that the Jesus evidence is actually the strongest evidence. And because when you're in either the first phase of just hearing about Jesus for the first time, or you're in the second phase of thinking that a God exists, but trying to decide which God exists. That procession, like I said, to examining the claims of Jesus of Nazareth is very clear. We had to go to roundtable hold before that. And so when you examine then the claims of Jesus of Nazareth in the Bible, I think that they show the absolute strongest evidence of being greater than any sayings of any person that I have ever heard, any philosopher, any other religious person, any of the religious writers. The things that Jesus himself taught are so unbelievable. They're really unbelievable, and they ring true to a person searching for this in a way that just no other claim of any kind does. That's really my view of the matter. It's like, I think that the greatest evidence really does come there, because there's just simply no greater evidence than what Jesus tells us. Because the information that we get from him is just so unbelievable, and it just lends itself towards, there being greater truth at play in what he tells us. Let's wait on that. And I don't think that I'm not just making a claim, I don't know, on the surface. Like, you can look at what he said, and you can look at what he taught, and it's profound in a way that nothing else I've ever encountered is profound, and it's true in a way that nothing else that I've ever encountered is true. And I think that you would say the same if you looked into it. I really do. It's just so different and so against the grain, and just what he tells us is just, it's the greatest truth that you will ever be told. And so I think that the evidence comes then from what Jesus says. It's processional right there, that you're hearing from the mouth of God. You're not hearing opinions, you're not hearing ideas, you're hearing something that is so much more and beyond anything that you've heard before. And that is what makes it especially significant. I guess I should maybe light this grace to be safe. And for me, that's what does it. It's examining all those claims, and you can take them. You can take them and you can put them against the claims of Muhammad, and you can take them and put them against the claims of the Buddhists and the Hinduists and all of their things about everybody being part of the same spirit and all of these other claims, and then all of the claims of mythological ideas about gods and about deities. And I just think that there's such a massive difference, and it shows itself, it manifests itself when you learn about these things. And if you're open-minded, I think that every person will see that too. The biggest thing is being open-minded and not having a hard heart, which is why the Bible talks about that so much, because it's a clear necessity that people are by default hard of heart and slow to believe in these sorts of things. It's not an obvious yes. It's not an obvious idea for them to follow. Like, it's complicated. It really is. And I mean, yeah, I think that's pretty much what there is to say about it. Like, I feel like I'm trying to think of what people might say in rebuttal to that, like, oh, but I've read other people and I find them more convincing and such like that. And like I said, to each their own. But if you really examine things that Jesus said, and maybe I can provide some examples, and that would help with my argument. like the way that he says things is simply more than true. It's not just the things he's saying are true, but they're true in the highest sense of the word. They're beyond true. They're so true that it is like there's nothing to consider beyond them. To me, a good example is when he kind of there's two good examples that spring to mind, and one is when he like deconstructs. I keep thinking I need to go for map fragments. When he deconstructs the adultery commandments in the Old Testament and says that if you look at a woman with lust, you've already committed adultery in your heart. That's such a primally true thing. That's so much more true than the law, than saying, like, yes, you're going to do bad things, so here's how you have to do recompense for it, and here's where the action goes over the line. But it's no, the action is actually wrong in the very essence of its being, and in the things that make you want, like, it's in your heart that these things are taking place, and that is what is just so much more true than the basic idea of right and wrong, of it's okay. And then you have whole camps of people who think this, who think it doesn't matter what you do in your brain, it matters what your actions show. And it doesn't matter who you are, as long as you're striving to be the best person that you can be, and things like that. But that's actually not sufficient. And I think that to me is the greatest point. It's not sufficient. There is much more to it than that, and you need to be doing much more. It's not enough to just be the best person that you can be. It's actually necessary that your entire heart is reconfigured in a new way. And if you can't see that for the truth that it is, then I can't even, I don't even know how to do that. And the same is true when, in another way, Jesus reshapes the law. When the Pharisees ask him, what is the most important of the commands, and what is the essence of the law and the prophets, and what should people do? When you hear that question, you think he's going to say what God finds most important. And what he does is he provides instead a statement that was already used in the Old Testament, but he recalls it in such a way that is just so unbelievable that they can't even fathom it when they hear it, which is that the essence of the law and the prophets is love God and love others. And, that's the most blanket statement, that has ever been made. It simplifies it to such an astonishing degree that you cannot even believe that it's the case that you're hearing that. It's incredible. It really is incredible. This is where I'm trying to get to. And I remember if the easiest way is to come. It looks like you could come off the coast here, so I might just put a marker over there and kind of just head that direction. See if we find any sites of grace on the way, because I want to just see if you can get all the way over there and then go up through the Magna Worm Cars ruins. That'll make it easy on us. Probably easier than getting the medallions. So we'll see. But yeah, I would say that those are my evidences. That's my reason why I believe. I believe that Jesus is more than a good teacher. I believe that he's more than a prophet. He's more than a, he's just so much more than any of those things. He's speaking of something that's just, it's beyond human capability to come up with, to apprehend. He's delivering truth in a way that is unbelievable and incredible, and to me that is the greatest evidence, and that's why the initial revelation of God is just the idea that a God exists. Well, then why can't anybody decide on one? Well, because they had options to choose from for most of human history. They started out with one good one, but then the false gods began to steal people away, and so then God picks a chosen people and chooses to have his special revelations come through them. And so for a long period of human history, you have Israel being the chosen people, and they're receiving the revelations. But then the So for the rest of the population, it's like, yeah, even if you wake up and you're like, there's something more going on in this world, to be able to find the right God is very difficult back in those days. And so then you have, of course, Jesus Christ, and that's the entire purpose of what he comes for, is to extend that special revelation to everybody else in the world, to extend it to the Gentile nations. And so when you're thinking about that, like, it just reaches an obvious conclusion. For God so loved the world that he sent his only Son, and whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. So it's not just that he loves Israel, but it is that he loves the world. And Jesus comes, he gives special revelation, he puts it on people's hearts that they can be able to believe in things that they might never have believed before. He opens people's minds and hearts and allows them to see in the incredible grace of God, is what people always call to. This grace that chases you down and ensures that you choose to believe ultimately. And that love is really extended through what we see with Jesus. And so he is the epitome of that. He is the epitome of what God is. He's the demonstration of that. Because the truth of the matter is that God speaks to us through stories. He speaks to us through events, and that's what these special revelations are. It really happened, but it happened in such a way as to learn from it, because obviously God knows that our continued generations are going to be the case. So Jesus doesn't just come and talk to the people of his time. He's talking to us now, because we, are still able to learn and know and find things out about this. It's not limited to anyone. It's now that Jesus has come, the information has been given, it's been recorded, and so everybody now can open their hearts and find the true message, because everybody has the option and the opportunity and the ability to be able to listen to what Jesus said. They can go and read them. The Bible is everywhere, and I don't think it's a coincidence that that's happened. And to make an argument that just because something is big it is right, just because everybody believes something doesn't make it right. And so just because 1,000 years ago there was more Christians than there are now, and all those kind of things, because it was going across the world so well, and that's not a good argument in and of itself. But there's something about if you think about it, if you think that a small people, Israel is a small people, and they've become incredibly significant, there's something in that. And the Christian faith is a seemingly small idea, but for it to take over the world in the way that it did, there's something to that. And for an entire religion, you might argue that, okay, other religions are more popular now, and what you're talking about is Islam, because there's a very significant amount of the world's population is now practicing Islam. But it's interesting that Islam is rooted in both Judaism and Christianity. So Islam doesn't proceed from itself. It's not an original. Original is a hard word to use. Christianity is an original. It comes from Judaism because, Jesus was a Jew and he's reforming Judaism. And in the same way, Islam is reforming Jews and Christians and, changing that rule, I guess you would say. So, trying to think of a way to put that in the simplest of terms, but I really think I've made the point quite clear, which is that I just think that Jesus is the pointer, and it's been demonstrated through the fact that he's so prevalent that everybody can learn about him, and that just about everyone. I mean, there's exceptions. So there's the nations that need to be ministered to, who need to receive special ministry and things like that, and reached in the corners of the world where Christians are persecuted. That's a different story. But for the most part, most of the human beings in the world now are being attempted to be ministered to are at the point where culturally Christianity has reached them in some way, shape, or form, and that's the most significant thing, because it's in the fact that everyone can access Jesus that the evidence for Jesus becomes all the more clear. So this is not just somebody who nobody's ever heard of and I'm telling you to join a cult. It's much bigger than that. The information has been especially passed on. And, I believe from a Christian perspective that that's, for religious reasons. Like, it's not a coincidence that everybody knows about Christianity and everybody knows about Jesus. That's not a coincidence. And so I think you would say that it is evidence that there's stronger things going on. And I think that's the best way for me to put it. So I'm thinking about the format for this video. We're approaching probably a good stopping point for the first conversation, which is on the existence of God. And I'm just curious to see if people like this, because I feel like my thoughts are a little bit more scattered. So I'm debating whether it would be better to have just like the gameplay in the background and I just record this video separate. I think either way I don't want to script it. I just want to talk about my faith personally and what personal thoughts I have, because I think it just goes better than like scripting it out for me sometimes. But I'm also wondering whether I should separate it out from playing at the same time. So if anybody has any input on that, I'd be interested to hear it, if they enjoyed this concept. Because another thing that I also want to do is go through Elden Ring a bit more slowly, and look for the specific themes in the game, and kind of locate those and use them to identify more narrative and religious themes, like I talked about in my original theological analysis of Elden Ring. Just kind of to do a slow playthrough and to examine how the themes play out in the game, in the small parts and in the big parts, and essentially everywhere that you can see them. I think that would be an interesting thing to do. So not just a playthrough where we're talking about philosophy and theology, but a playthrough where we're specifically examining Elden Ring, and not just using it as a background tool, which is mostly what I'm doing here. Mostly using this to aid in our examination, and in our discussion, because to me it's more interesting for you to watch me running around back here than, just to have a video of me talking from my camera into your face. But some people like that too. It's interesting. I think that there's a lot of perspectives from which you could do this. I'm just going to use Mimicked here so that we can just nice and quickly here bonk through Magnum Makar. That way we can move on to bigger and better things. Forgot about that one. Staggered me, so I wasn't able to get a jump attack in there. It's a little bit rough. But I think that the primary summative point would be that human beings are inbuilt with the ability to see the existence of a God. It's not this mysterious thing that the New Age has made it seem to be. Like, it's not silly to think that there could be a God. It's not silly to think that there's something more. It's not something that we just do so that we can answer the question of death. It's not just us saying, I don't really want to be separated from this person that died, so I'm going to invent a religion so that I feel better. I think that that's just really spitting in the face of so many things. There's just so much more to it. And I think any person can see that, really, if they think about it. That's the traditional complaint, is it's just this feel-good thing. But what my best counter offer to that, and why I continue to say that Jesus is the best evidence for the existence of God, is that it's not true. It's just not true at all. In fact, the practice of Christianity is one of the hardest things that you can do. And it's especially because it's about the heart too. Like, in some ways you could argue that the Jewish laws are very difficult to follow, and it's true that they are, but that's because no person is expected to do all that. It's incredibly difficult to follow all of those sets of actions and sets of rules. And so you might see that and say, okay, yeah, how am I supposed to do this? But another thing that you might see and say is, how is one's heart supposed to be in the position that Jesus wants it, to where if someone strikes you, you're supposed to let them strike you again. And if someone steals from you your coat, you're supposed to also give them your pants. Like, these ideas are a complete change to the natural state of the human heart, which is selfishness, which is to care for other people. Now, of course, we'll help people when they're in difficult situations. You know, we can be generous, we can be good. There's good in our hearts, naturally, you know, and we see this when tough situations strike a country and people band together and try to heal together from whatever tough situation they're facing. That's true. But it's not so true. Like, it's not the, like, our hearts aren't towards good, and that's hard. It's hard to have your heart towards good in the way in which you're supposed to, which is what the true challenge of Christianity is. The true challenge of Christianity says, you know, you should in your heart care more for other people than you care about yourself, and you should love God, and you should love people, not love yourself, not just love your family, not just love any of those things. There's no limitations on it. You should love unanimously and wholly, and that love should be directed towards other people. You know, that's a hard thing. It's a very hard thing to do. And so my point is that for someone to say that Christianity is just something to make people feel good and make life easier, well, only people who are practicing Christianity incorrectly are experiencing that, because it's incorrect. Like, reasonably, nobody is experiencing Christianity in that way, because it isn't correct. That's not the correct way to experience it. It's very difficult to truly put your heart in the right place and to chase after those things in such a way as that. So to me, that's another just great evidence for its truth, because it's not just something that was invented to make life easier. Jesus said it would be very hard for people to drink after his cup, and that the world would hate you, and because you're fighting against the forces of evil, and you're fighting against the evil of human nature, and so many things like that. And that is hard. It's not easy. It's not something that you would make up. In my opinion, nothing that Jesus says is something that any person would or could make up. And that sort of speaks to that primal truth of it. So it's crazy. This is my friendly reminder that Elden Ring is a long game, because we've been talking for 40 minutes, and we're still proceeding into Lake Dale Capital, where we still have to fight Morgoth before we can get to Moog. Because, yeah. I've actually never done... Is it true that you can do Vari's quests and then get there faster? I'm pretty sure that is true. Isn't there another way also of getting into Lanedale? Is he gonna take our horse? Let's go wide. I don't remember if Margit kicks you off your horse and you can just ride past him. Try to ride past him. But there's a site of grace up there, and we go back to fight the Draconic Tree Sentinel. But isn't there... what do you do to get teleported? I know there's a way that you can get teleported into, like, right into the middle of Lanedale. Where is that from? Is that from the underground areas? Like, if you go all the way through deeper depths? Where's the site of grace here? It's over there. How did I miss it? And grab that in case we ever need to teleport back here. Which I will, because I'm not gonna just, like, forfeit this game. It's funny, I had 4 profiles prepped to do Shadow of the Erdtree, and I didn't think about the fact that if I went through all of them, you wouldn't be able to redo it. Like, I can't just instantly go back into Shadow of the Erdtree, which is really interesting. It's like you have to go back through some of the main games so that you can do Shadow of the Erdtree again. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'll just do New Game Plus and go straight there. But you have to, right? Like, I feel like I'm missing something. You have to go through all of this for me to get back there at all, which is kind of tough. So anyways, I think we leave the existence of God conversation and the existence of Jesus conversation here, and then we can address maybe specific examples of it in the next one. I'm trying to think of what my second topic should be here. So I think I'll take a minute to mull that over and then pick up there in the next section of recording, assuming that we can survive these arrow giant boys. Fight this draconic tree sentinel successfully. I guess maybe we'll fight him and then end this one here. So I'd be interested to hear thoughts and comments on the idea of the existence of God that we're talking about. Because, you know, I know that it's difficult for some people, you know, to admit things like that. And to open our minds from this idea that we've had where, like, humanity is the most superior thing and we don't need God, and to believe in God is actually just weakness and naivety and all of those kind of things. And, you know, it's hard for people to get past that idea because it's been so prominently pushed to us nowadays. So it seems silly from many perspectives to even believe in God, and specifically to believe in Christian God in so many ways. Here's where we're going to find out if we have to go fight Renala. I guess we could also do Reichard. I don't know what would be the fastest run through. I guess Ray Lucaria is a pretty fast run through. You have to fight Red Wolf then too. Got more Great Runes. That's so funny. Well, how does that even work though? Because I have a... I guess you don't keep the Great Runes in between. Where are Great Runes even stored? Yeah, so we need another Great Rune. I guess we do Renala. Where's the dragon? Is he right there? Or is he up here? I think he's right there. Okay, so when we come back, we will be going to Ray Lucaria Academy. Who else could we do? We could do Radon. Reichard. That's actually it. Yeah, we'll do Ray Lucaria. Okay, so when we come back, we will be picking up with Ray Lucaria Academy.